load it up here, everyone, if you're joining us.
YouTube is still going live. All right, we go live on YouTube, Facebooks, and the Instagram. All right, good.
Good? All right. Welcome to the 034 Motorsport Live. Merry post-Christmas Eve. Wait, Christmas is like 2 days ago. Hope you guys had a nice one. And we are here for our live chat, episode number 128. And as always, a Q&A session. Ask anything you'd like. We certainly mostly answer questions about 034 Motorsport products and services. We take a no BS approach to responding. We like to cut through the crap whenever possible. And if you love us, let us know. If you hate us, let us know, and we can maybe work it out, figure out what went wrong. And then just put your questions into your browser of your current experience that you're currently experiencing. Just put your question right in there, and then we'll grab it, and it will go into here, and then we can answer the questions. Okay. And then we're also going to be talking about our new MK8 GTI Tune release, which is very exciting. I believe we are the second option on the market.
Yeah, for actual like mass flashing and
Yes.
at-home flashing.
And we unfortunately didn't come out with it sooner, but we wanted to spend some extra time to make it the best tune possible. I think people are seeing incredible performance at a very good value that we're offering. I think a lot of people are having regrets on jumping into purchasing the other option so quickly, but if we can't get you to buy our tune, we just want you to really regret your other choice. That's kind of like the next best option for us.
Sorry.
Yeah. And then the third option is that we just wish you to be happy. But we got some questions rolling. Are these? Let's see what's with this Daza?
That's a big one that's coming up next week. So if you skip past that for now, we want
Okay.
a focused time.
And these are all questions from last week.
No,
These are current. Okay.
these are-
All right. So let's jump into some questions that are coming in here. I need to run the Liqui Moly fuel injector cleaner in my car. I'm currently dual pulley running E40. Should I switch back to 93 octane, or can I stay on E40 while adding in the fuel injection cleaner?
Never really thought about that. I mean, how much are you running through your system though?
It's a little bottle.
It's a tiny little bottle.
I don't really think it matters.
I don't think it's going to matter what you're on.
The fuel injection cleaner by volume is just not enough to change the octane or the tuning at all. So the idea is that these fuel injection cleaners add some solvents to the fuel, and as it runs by the injectors, it does cleaning at the same time. I don't honestly know how well these fuel injector cleaning additives work. Liqui Moly is a very reputable company. There's a lot of snake oil stuff out there as well. But regardless, you're not asking about whether the fuel injection cleaner will work. I don't think it will matter. You can run it on whatever tune you're on. I mean, if it's enough to hurt your octane on an E-tune, it's going to be enough to hurt your octane on a gasoline tune. So I don't think it matters. If you're really worried about it, just run through a tank and just kind of drive mellow as it goes through the engine. I don't know. Unfortunately, we don't have a real good answer for that one, but I don't think it matters. Is there any hope of the tunes spreading to other platforms? That's like a virus.
I
wish
that'd be great.
I wish our tunes could just spread. That would be.
Give them a seat.
We would have an engineer create one tune, and it would just slowly spread to other cars. Yeah. And to other platforms like the EA839, to other platforms with the EA839, like C8A6 or Forum Q7, Q8.
Those are not quite the same 839. Those are mild hybrids. So the things that it does propagate to right now are the direct peers to the motor that's in the S4.
Yeah, with the same engine code, basically.
Essentially the same engine code and the same hardware. The rest of them have either different ECU architecture, mild or a pretty majorly different calibration strategy, or some other hardware that's it's a hybrid system of some sort around it. So those need their own calibrations. Some of them have transmissions that we don't have any calibration for as well.
Yeah.
It's got an ASIN or something on there that we're not currently calibrating. So
Those are both, both platforms you list, the C8 A6 and the Q7 Q8 with that 3.0 T are both platforms you won't see a lot of tuning support in.
And that's what I was just going to say. It's like, just the popularity and uptake of these things is pretty low.
So for us, it will come down to if we literally have nothing better to do.
Yeah.
Sorry, but that's, from a business standpoint, if there are no better tunes or applications to work on, which is very doubtful, then we would put focus on these kind of lower popularity applications like that. Now the 4M Q7 with the 3.0 supercharged engine, we will be doing a tune for that. Because I own a Q7 and goddamn it, I want a fucking tune. So all you guys with B9s complaining about not having tunes, I've owned a Q7 for 1 year and I still don't have a tune. So, we do actually prioritize this stuff and we don't just do whatever we want. But we have to go by the tuning application, the business opportunity that presents the best opportunity. Yeah. What we do is not cheap. Engineers are not cheap. The tools, the IP, the time spent is substantial. So, to bring these tunes to market, it's a big chunk of money. And so the only way that it can be justified is to go after tunes that will have then the marketability to sell the most possible. I mean, we would literally go out of business if we didn't do that right.
Yeah, well, and it's not just financial; it's just the time. Like, there's only so much time we can. I mean, time is money, I guess, but
it is the time.
Yeah,
this is exactly what I'm saying. Is there's only so much time, so we have to use that time to generate the best financial return, so that we don't go out of business. No one's becoming a billionaire here anytime soon. So it's just a matter of how do we keep being 034 Motorsport, the one that we started being in 2003. How do we continue doing that for another 10, 20 years when we have to go after the best, most popular applications?
Yep.
All right. Stage 1 tunes developed on a stock unmodified car. Yes, the Stage 1 implies that it's a factory stock vehicle with simply an ECU flash. And generally speaking, there are never any required modifications for Stage 1 other than the ECU flash. And usually Stage 1 is the biggest bang for the buck. It's where you realize the most opportunity that's left in the engine and transmission system. Stage 2 without crackle available for B9 S4. Sort of.
I mean, you can run. So we get this question from time to time. You can run it in
Comfort.
It's not necessarily comfort, but you can run it in individual and set up your preferred sound strategy there, basically.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things we don't want to just take it off the table, and you have the option to kind of configure it how you want.
How's the miles per gallon with Stage 2 ECU TC tune on a B9.5 S5? So whenever you're talking about miles per gallon, you have to normalize the evaluation of that with the same exact driving condition or load. And so assuming that you took a factory car and a Stage 2 car through very similar driving load conditions. In other words, you gave the same amount of throttle at different times for certain amounts of time, but both would be virtually identical. In fact, the Stage 2 car might actually be a little bit more efficient because no cat or a freer flowing cat. Now, if you get to a point where you're wide open throttle on stock and you're wide open throttle on Stage 2, Stage 2 is going to use more fuel because it's making a lot more power. So there's no magic formula you know, we can't lean it out so much from the factory that you get better mileage or something like that. These factory ECUs run the engine at a very precise air fuel ratio, and they consume exactly the least amount of fuel they need to do what needs to be done. And we don't really change that under light load conditions. It's basically the same. Our stage 2 doesn't use more fuel for no reason. But when you are on the power, when you are generating that increased level of boost over factory, then yes, more fuel is being used because, again, there's no free energy. The extra horsepower comes from burning more fuel. But you won't see really any change in engine efficiency, you know, for one driving condition comparably.
Right.
Still no TT810 tune. I thought it was going to be coming out before New Year's. Well, listen, it's 27th.
Just on.
You know, newsflash, it's not New Year's yet. So we are imminent to release it. We were going to release before Christmas. We decided to wait to fine tune and tweak a few things to make the tune even better. So we delayed it a little bit, but you should be seeing something very soon. So hang in there. It'll be worth the wait. Any timeline for tune for 2023? 2023 tuning for B9.5 S4 S5. Asking as IE released their tune a couple days ago.
We've talked about this a little bit. I don't know if I've seen anybody actually flash from them yet on the 23, but I don't have anything definitive right now that we're able to release. So we're working on it.
Yeah, we will definitely have it soon. Yeah, we're not quite clear what it is they're saying they have for 2023. So,
Somebody's just follow up the TT720 imminent as well. That's going to be a little bit further up, but it's hot in the heels of the 810.
It's imminent, yes. Not in the next few days, but
Yep.
in the next week or two, yes. Can we be cleaning up answered questions? Well, let's prioritize that because it's really hard doing this with extra old questions just hanging on there. 8Y S3 ECU tunes, those are coming. We've been working on that at the same time as the GTI tune, and you know, we should have something out very soon. So hang in there. The power gains on these new cars is extremely impressive. We'll talk about some of the power numbers that we're generating from the GTI, which has a smaller turbo than the S3, and that's insane.
Yeah, these things have a ton of power.
Thoughts on a baffled oil pan for the B9 3.0 T? I've never thought of that. I don't know if it's needed.
I'm trying to think if we haven't had any oiling
believe we've ever
issues
had any
on track with any of the cars.
Generally, these new vehicles are very good in that regard. They're engineered very well, and like in like the 80s, a lot of the Audi engines were like truck engines, and just like they were just recycling stuff, and so like if you look at the Audi i5, it's basically based on some industrial engine from the 60s, and the oil management inside that motor is not good.
It's like basically a bucket.
It's terrible
of oil there. Like there's no baffling, there's no restriction, no guide plates or anything in there stock.
And the cars they put them in, even the original Quattro, it could probably barely pull 8 Gs. They're 0.8 Gs, in a turn. But once you start modifying those cars and that thing's pulling 1.5 Gs on track, it was a nightmare because you'd have major oil starvation. But these new cars can do a lot of Gs right from the factory. They handle very well, and they're brand new, purposefully designed engines for these cars. So no, I haven't seen any oiling issues like that in cars. I'd say since the B5. I think the B5 even wasn't bad, but it could have used some help. But the newer engines are all very good. There's the Mark 6 GTI. So what was that? The
PT30.
Yeah. What gen is that? Gen 2?
Gen 1.
That was the Gen 1. I thought it was the Gen 2.
Gen 2 was. Gen
Okay.
1 E-Trip.
The Gen 1 E888 would have oil pool in the cylinder head, and it would starve, and you'd blow motors on track all the time. And so, for those cars, you need to run, those pressurized oil canisters, what are they called?
Oh, like the AccuSumps?
AccuSump. To give the oil back, oil pressure back, when it dips. Is it possible to make a roll center correction bracket for the back suspension MQB platforms by connecting it with the 2 bolts on the end before the spindle and have a new hole that's lower? The only way to change the roll center in the back of the car would be to either move the ball joint provision down or the inner controller and bushings up, right? So this is your arm stock. When the car is lowered, your arm does this. So you either need to lower the ball joint or raise the bushings. Raising the bushings is not going to happen, right? So what we did in the front is we made a ball joint with a longer shaft on. Who doesn't want a longer shaft? So, basically that's what you'd have to do in the back as well. If you change how the control arm connects to the ball joint, so let's say this is the ball joint, this is your control arm, and you lower this, you have not changed your roll center. You've just moved your control arm around. Your control arm could do whatever it wants between those 2 points. The geometry of that suspension arm would not change. Only by moving those points would it change. 720, we answered that.
I'm sure we talked about 810.
And 720.
Yeah, we text 720 on there too.
What's the next biggest thing coming for the 3.0 T B9 platform? I would say big things from us is our super duper S34 intake, which will be rated for 1,000 horsepower of zero restriction flow. That will be coming soon. We will be offering that for the B9 S4, for the SQ5, and other variants. We will offer an RS5 version as well at some point. Now, our current intakes flow very well, and I don't believe at the kind of 710, 810 power level that you're really giving up anything with our current intakes. But we are anticipating 1,000, 1,500 horsepower S4s in the next few years. So we want to be prepared for that. But I would say that's probably the next big thing coming.
Yeah.
Is even bigger turbos. So, the A10 is currently the biggest option right now. But it's inevitable. One of these motors with rods, just rods in it, will be capable of 1,500 horsepower. Maybe some valve springs and a few supporting modifications, but incredibly potent platform. Maybe some head studs, a few things like that.
Got a lot of Mark 8 questions flowing through here. So.
I'm just answering all the questions.
No. Here.
Great. We'll talk about it in a minute. On the stock motor, could there possibly be less back pressure from a turbo with a larger housing, therefore possibility for more power gains? Yes. Currently, the TT options, are using stock housings. The stock housings are designed for, a 4 to 450 horsepower turbo. So that means inherently at 800 horsepower, the housings are not optimal for flow. So it's not so much that you need to make the housing, a bigger housing does not always equal more power in a turbo application. However, the optimal housing always equals more power. And sometimes that's smaller. But yes, in this case with the factory housing, you can only assume that you're doubling the horsepower of the turbo with the same size housing. So the housings are likely going to be a flow restriction.
Right. And I mean, you could go too extreme one way or the other.
Yeah. So yes, in the future you will see drop-in turbo options with new housings that flow more than the stock housings, and the function of that is the AR ratio of these turbine and compressor housings will be bigger. Another question about, are there any oil pressure issues with the B9 3.0 T platform? These things launch hard. Yes, they do, and no, we have not.
We have not
Not
seen
seen
any.
any. What big merch are you going to have for your 20th anniversary next year? That's a good question. Let's see some good stuff. So we have some new SQ5 and Mark 8 merch coming very soon. So we're excited about that. We'll definitely have a 20th anniversary shirt, just like we've had in the past. If you guys have any suggestions or things that you'd like, let us know. But yeah, 20th anniversary is a big deal. We should definitely really celebrate that. Yeah, it is. That's technically two at least 2 years away. Yeah. Now, I think they're referring to that when I said 2003. I did actually start the company in 2003, but I went full time in 2005. So it's kind of where we.
Yeah.
2005 is
Pick
kind
a
of
point.
year zero for us, and then we kind of go from there. All right, let's talk market. We're almost half an hour. Let's talk Mark 8 tuning. So we did just release as an early Christmas present our Mark 8 GTI tuning. We released our Stage 1 ECU and Stage 1 TCU tunes. And we released them with a 2-week really aggressive special pricing sale because we really want to get it out there and get in the hands of as many people as possible, with the goal of people flashing their cars and having positive feedback. And I think there's probably a lot of people that will wait until they hear that, and we're confident the feedback will be positive. So, but now is a great time to buy. We're like, what, 30% off?
That's correct.
So it's almost too cheap because it's confused people as to why it's so cheap. And
Sorry,
yeah, so if you'd like to pay us more, feel free.
you can wait.
But our Stage 1 ECU tuning currently is on sale for $455. Normally will be $650, and that's the price that it will go to on January 7th. And that does include a free Stage 1 TCU tune. And we'll explain a little bit about our Stage 1 TCU tune. I think that's where some of the confusion is coming.
Yeah.
So should we just talk wheel numbers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So stock, we measured about 223 wheel horsepower, 263 wheel torque. Our 91 octane tune, which is just an ECU flash, no other modifications. Wheel horsepower jumps to 300 wheel and 355 torque. I mean, that's a substantial 75 plus horsepower increase. Truly insane. 93 jumps to 309. So you get about another 9-10 horsepower there, and another, 15 foot-pounds of torque.
Yep.
And on E85, which is just fill your tank up with E85, wheel jumps to 332. Yeah, 110 horsepower increase over stock.
It's insane for GTI.
362, and this is again just the flash.
Yeah.
We're estimating, in the high 300 to 400.
These numbers were on a stock car, stock intake, stock intercooler, stock exhaust, tip to tail.
Yep, that's all you need to do. Now, of course, if you do our intake or some other mods, the power can increase even further. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the features, Nate?
I mean, it's a Stage 1 file. The features are going to be, we've got them listed, but you're going to see a more refined driving experience. It's going to be a hell of a lot faster. We are offering both, these are pretty new cars. Not a lot of guys have many heavy mods on them. And from what we've seen in the past and are seeing on these cars, depending on how you drive, if you have a manual, the stock clutch can be questionable at these kind of numbers. So we do have reduced torque files up on the server for every octane that we offer.
Yeah.
There's going to be a reduced torque option as well, just to help. In the interim, your peak horsepower number I think is pretty much identical. It's just going to bring that low end torque down for you.
I think actually the low torque file is is a better driving experience, in my opinion.
With the two-wheel drive cars,
Yeah.
you've got to have a pretty well set up rig to run.
And the sensation of acceleration is actually a little bit better because the power band is more progressive, so you get that increasing sensation of acceleration as opposed to the big surge of power, which actually tapers off because it's so much torque down low. And like Nate said, I don't even think the car would be any slower.
Yep.
But it's definitely needed on these manual transmission cars that have a stock clutch. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, AMAX has been increased. I'm trying to think of what else we've snuck in here that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Thermal management improvements,
Optimizations.
just optimizations there from the factory, just because we're running a bunch more load and torque. And then the 85 mapping is literally pump in E85. And you're off to the races.
Which is from a horsepower standpoint, it's huge.
Yeah.
And
And
gives
remember
you the most power.
Yeah, this isn't FlexFuel, so this is going to be just an E85 file. You want to run. We've got a bunch of videos up on how to how you should kind of handle that.
You want to get a gauge.
Switch over.
Get yourself an E85 content analyzer so you can, when you fill it up, you want to be at least E70 before you go ripping on it.
We'll be working on E60.
You
on
can
the
go
other-
down to
yeah.
E6.
We'll be working full FlexFuel side of things, but for now, it's going to be a straight up E85. When you do the FlexFuel, you have to add sensors and wiring, and it's more. There's just a lot more involved in getting the FlexFuel system in there because you got to splice into the fuel line, get the sensor installed, get it wired into the ECU.
We will eventually do FlexFuel, just like other companies are talking about as well. But for now, we're the only option with full E85.
Yep.
And it's a great option.
Yeah, and these fuel systems are thus far proving to be quite an upgrade from what the Mark 7s were.
So let's talk about our Stage 1 TCU tune, if there's any confusion about that. This is kind of the same model that we did for the B9. Our Stage 1 TCU tune is not a full-featured TCU tune, so it's not really going to change, your shifting or give you launch control, any extra features of that. We are rescaling the torque settings in the TCU. The TCU is actually what controls how much torque the engine makes.
Well, it caps. Yeah,
It caps it.
It has a hard limit that it will put.
That's right. It limits the amount of torque the engine makes. And when we talk about torque, we're talking about peak torque anyways. And so our Stage 1 TCU file rescales the factory TCU to allow the factory TCU to permit higher torque from the engine. You can fudge this in the ECU tuning, but you would still be limited at a peak torque level. And so by doing this, a lot of people are on the market are calling it a patch file. I don't know where that term came from. It's not necessarily, we're not patching anything. We're rescaling torque.
Yeah, it does have remapped. It is a recalibrated TCU file for the additional torque.
So we will eventually release a Stage 2 tune, which will sell for money, and you'll be paying for that, just like some of the other companies' Stage 1 TCU tunes. And so later on, when we release our Stage 2 file, which isn't too far off, that will be a file that you pay for, and that will have enhancements to launch control and shift speed and even potential rev limiter changes and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right now it's going to have the stock shift points. We do alter the way the AMAX is enabled, or we jump out of AMAX quicker on these because you have to do a bunch of remapping to get those to work correctly. That'll be in the Stage 2 file. If you leave them stock, they're pretty terrible.
Yeah.
And then increased some flex pressures just to follow along with the added torque output.
So that's why we're including this TCU file at no charge for free.
Yep.
And what we've done in the past too is we've offered a discount for anyone who has the Stage 1 when we release our Stage 2 who bought it previously. So
yeah, we'll probably follow the same model for this when we work on the Stage 2 stuff.
Now we got some questions coming in. How is the reliability of your tune compared to Unitronic? I mean, we're not really familiar with the Unitronic tune and how reliable it is. I don't know if anyone's had any issues with the Unitronic tune or not. We just focus kind of on what we're doing. We don't really follow too much about what's going on out there. However, if you go on our Uncut channel or go back and watch any of our YouTube videos talking about tuning, our philosophy is always to keep all the factory safety features and even build and enhance them. So things like the TCU tune, our stage 1, that rescales the torque settings to allow a higher safe torque level. Our thermal management strategies, which brings power and load down if there's any engine overheat, a potential for engine overheating. Before it overheats, we're already managing the temperatures and bringing them down. We don't fudge or work around any of the factory safety features. We keep everything in place. So, our tune is as safe as the factory tune. In some cases, we're making it even safer than the factory tune. And again, we can't talk about anyone. We don't really know about anyone else's tune, but our tune is very reliable. We are not known for unreliable tunes. In fact, we are market leaders in the B8 and B9. We've been doing Mark 7 tuning for 5 years. We've never had a blown motor, an issue with damaged motor, or any reliability issues whatsoever. Now, there are things that will crop up in the tunes that could affect the running quality. That's not a safety issue, but maybe when it gets really cold, there's a misfire, or the idle could be a little rough during certain, and we always jump on those and we offer fixes for those as quickly as possible. And anyone in the B8 or B9 market or the Mark 7 community will say that, we're really good about jumping and fixing those things as soon as we find out about them.
Yeah, and we do everything we can to test as many situations as we can. We've taken the car, driven up to altitude, various temperatures and conditions and all that. So, we try and cover our bases as much as we can before release.
Why do you offer Stage 1 TC tuner for free? I just talked about that. Hopefully that answered that. What TCUs are currently supported for the Mark 8 GTI?
All the ones we've seen so far, I don't have an exhaustive list in my head right now.
What's the time frame for supporting the unsupported TCUs?
That's as soon as we announce that they are supported.
Yeah, we're working on all that every day. What file should I run if I have a manual transmission with a stock clutch or an unsupported TCU box code?
You can just run the reduced torque. Like I said, your driving experience is going to be the same on all these, and if not, like what I was saying, it depends on what you want out of the motor, but the top end is going to be essentially the same power wise, and it'll just be a little lower peak torque, but that's about it. It's still going to be a lot faster than stock.
With 034 Motorsport and Racingline being the same company, in quotations, we're not the same company. How is 034 output so much higher than Racingline?
They've really announced for, I think, just basically 91 octane in general. They just have the 98.
They don't have any 85 tune.
85.
I don't know what they've done for 93. So we are part of the same group. So it's kind of like Volkswagen and Porsche, or Audi and Porsche are both part of Volkswagen Group, but they operate. Porsche and Audi have their own engineering teams, their own engineering efforts, their own products, and everything's different. But there's some shared technology, and you see that DNA. So that's the same thing with us. But the Racingline tune is not a rebadged 034 tune. They have their own calibration team. They did their own calibrations. The U.S. market is a little different than the European market. From what we understand, we know the U.S. market. The U.S. market, everybody wants the most power, the most torque, the fastest. They want to be running. Everyone wants to run nines. They want to do wheelies. Americans are fucking crazy. They just want to send it. Apparently, the European market is more refined and less concerned about the utmost stringing, the utmost power and torque. And I think the OEM plus kind of, it's like stock, but a little faster is more what the European market's going for. That's from my understanding. So our products will cater to those markets differently. We are, again, two completely different companies. We have different engineering teams, but we do collaborate and work behind the scenes whenever.
Should be noted that ours are still plus.
Yeah, I mean, that's not to say that, like we just spoke about, like all this.
Well, why would you even say that?
It's also, we're comparing.
I really want to go there.
Yeah, we're comparing dyno numbers again. We always come back to that conversation too. Is like, you have to take all of that with a educated grain of salt there, and just look at the deltas, look at kind of the power band, and what the strategy for the file is. But to compare internet dyno numbers back to back and take them at full face value is always difficult.
But with that said, I do believe we are producing the most torque of anyone on the market.
Yep.
And then the E85 tune.
Well, that's a huge difference there.
What ethanol content range does the E85 file accept? As low as E60, but certainly anything E60, E65 to E85.
Yep.
You don't have to be at E85.
Most pumps we see are between 70 and 80. That's kind of the average.
I've never pumped and gotten less than 70, but it's possible. Which is why I said 70. Will you bring FlexFuel to the MK8 GTI? Uni and IE have both teased that they'll be bringing. Yes, we are working on that as well. I think everybody wants to offer that. For us, it always comes down to FlexFuel is nice. It's a nice to have, but if you can just fill your tank with the 85,
and we don't need and you have the ability to reflash these ECUs at home, so it's
at home or at anywhere. If you have a battery charger and a Wi-Fi connection, you can do it. Has development started in regards to placing the MK8 R Turbo in a MK8 GTI? Yes, that's definitely something we will be offering. If your TCU version is not yet compatible for the TCU tune additional clamping force, what kind of torque can we expect with the ECU Stage 1 tune only until the additional version is available?
We'll get some more information up that show basically the stock TCU files. On 91 octane, I have those numbers handy right now, but it's not much less on that file. We'll get them all up for.
I don't think we're not leaving much torque on the table with Stage 1. Stage 1 TCU.
This is asking for
with the stock TCU.
Stock TCU files.
Yes. If you have a stock TCU, where does your torque land? We'll put those numbers up for you so you can see it. I want to say 91 wasn't that hugely different. To kind of give you an idea of things.
Oh, okay. But,
yeah. I'll get all that published.
If you had to compare the IS38 Turbo to the new Garret in the GTI, is the IS38 better?
I'd say they're
very similar.
About the same.
Yeah.
The numbers we're seeing are very IS38-esque.
Like 400 crank. I mean, that's right.
This turbo comes on earlier, though, so you're actually getting a little more power band than the IS38.
It seems like Audi is just getting, I'd say turbos in general, but the turbo tech in these cars keeps getting better and better. Yeah. The turbos spool up faster and flow more and make more power. They're just more efficient. The factory turbos are very good. I mean, look at the B9 S4. We're doing like 450 crank easily, with a stock turbo, and it spools up very fast.
B9 S4?
Yeah.
More than that. 500
crank. Yeah. So, yeah, on the 85, 500 crank. All right. What other modifications should I look at adding to improve power?
It's all the supporting stuff we recommend. So intercooler is going to be one of the first ones that we're on there, and an intake.
Intercooler will definitely help for consistency when you're doing, pull after pull after pull. Definitely our street density motor mounts, our dogbone inserts, our S34 intake will all work very well. Take a look at our whole catalog, though. And we're coming out with more and more products for that platform all the time.
Oh, interesting. Somebody brought up an interesting point I hadn't thought about. This goes back to why the numbers might be different. In the UK, we have different insurance to you guys, which we pay through the roof for modifications, which is why most people don't go as far as the US. So
there you go.
There's a lot of factors that change market, market demands.
Mm-hmm. All right. We can jump back into questions.
I think that was most of the market stuff we had.
Yep. Can you explain MPI versus DI?
Yep. In the comments it says multi versus direct. They're both multi, so you have an independent injector per cylinder. MPI just means it's port injection. It's
multi-port injection.
That middle letter is the one that's more important there. It's actually in the intake runner, in the cylinder head or in the intake manifold, but it's pre-intake valve versus direct, which is actually inside the combustion chamber itself.
Yeah.
So, the differences are, that is the key difference between them. And what that does for you is a number of things. With a port injector, you've got a whole different fueling strategy because you're not just getting what you spray out of the injector into the cylinder. You have a lot of other factors around it. The OEM world, it's called wall wetting. And that basically is there's a certain amount of that fuel that ends up, residing on the cylinder wall or the port walls, the valve. Not all of it is going to make it into the cylinder at each injection event. And then subsequently, when you turn off that injector, you still get some of that fuel into the cylinder on the next event. So it's not quite as clean of a control system as you get with a direct, where it's literally you shut off the injector, it's off. Yeah. You're done.
All right, let's keep going. We have a lot of questions.
Yep. Yeah, we do. We have a pile here.
I already answered that one.
Which one?
Just a question about bar got stolen. So
Yeah, we're not car thief experts.
well, stage one on my Audi S5 B9 remove the check engine light if I put on a catless downpipe. No, this sounds like a EPL confusion. No, stage one requires the factory cat,
Yep.
and if you want to remove your cat for racing use, you can run a stage 2 file, and that will keep your check engine light off and keep things running well with a high flow cat.
Yep.
How different would you compare the A10 versus 720 in terms of when power comes on?
They're pretty similar.
Like the A10 versus the RS5?
Yeah, the A10's got a little more top end, but they're splitting hairs, I think, for most of the power band.
They make similar power too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they're not far off between the two.
The gear is just shorter.
RS5 does have different gearing. Yeah, the power delivery is different for sure.
Installed my 034 Motorsport front strut brace for my B9 S4. I was very skeptical at first, but overall very happy with it, including a fire dash now. Thanks for a great product. Glad you're happy. It also looks nice too, which we love. Any recommendations for a racing seat and brackets and a 22 S5 Sportback?
That gets
I
tricky.
don't know what we did.
We
do.
We used standard Kirky brackets in a row.
Yeah, I mean, there are some compromises when you do any sport seat because you're gonna your airbags are gonna freak out. I mean, the airbag system is gonna freak out because you've got pillow bags inside the seat and all that, so you're gonna have issues with that if you're gonna be running this.
Yeah, but to answer the question, you basically start with some Kirky brackets, and then you're gonna have to which bolt to the seat, and then you're gonna have to weld onto that bracket and connect to the factory mounting point.
Yeah, I don't know what your use cases in this, but yeah, you'll have to fabricate some brackets that will drop into the stock mounting points.
I've heard about some rod failures on 8 VRS3s over 500 torque. Would your stage 1 E85 tune be safe enough to keep the stock rods happy? Absolutely. And we know because we actually went there with an in-house vehicle and we found the torque limit. So our DAZA tune is extremely safe. It's proven. It's being run by many cars on track and on the street. And just to be clear, we would never offer a tune that could damage your engine. That's not something we're not in the market of that. I'm already stage 2 plus on my B8 S4 from a local tuner, but I don't have launch control. Could I buy your flashing tool just for the launch control, or do I have to upload your entire stage 2 plus file? No, you cannot load parts of our file onto your other ECU tune. It's an all or nothing.
No, that's not how that works.
There's not like a launch control, EEPROM inside your ECU that just you can flash that with different flashes. You'll want our tune anyways. I can assure you our tune is better than whatever it is that you have on your car, and much safer and more powerful and nicer to drive.
There's a lot of things on the B8s that go into getting those to drive the way that our cars do. It's
You're welcome to buy our tune. You have a 30-day money back guarantee. I don't think you'll be returning it.
Yep.
Let's see. Pure turbo support for B9 S4. Yes, that's coming. We will definitely be supporting that. Difference between Autotec IE and 034 fuel pump upgrade. What? No. I can say compared to Autotec's, ours won't fail or have problems. Almost all the Autotec pumps for the last year have been
I don't
failing.
know what's going on there.
Compared to IE, you'll just have to look up their website and you can compare. I don't even know. In some cases, IE doesn't even offer piston upgrades. They only offer full pumps for a lot. So our piston upgrade option is a very good one. It will save you money. It's not very difficult to change the piston out. Anyone can do it. And we've had extremely good reliability.
Yep. Yeah, you can take a look at
Zero
our instructions beforehand. Make sure you're versed in what you'll need.
I think the only issue we've had is someone put in their fuel pump lifter upside down. And
Is that what is that what actually happened to that?
It has to be.
That's all I can think of too.
Because there's no way our fuel pump could damage.
Yeah, we had a smart case come through last week
a couple weeks ago.
we were trying to work out with them.
Regarding the MQB pendulum mount, at what point do you need to replace the pucks versus just doing the inserts? I mean, there's no point you need to do anything. The stock puck, works fine. It's just softer. So if you do the dogbone arm and the inserts, and you still want more stiffness and control, then you can swap out to our density version. But that's it. But it's completely up to you. How accurate is the ECU TCU torque reading on the 2021 S4? Noticing that a 91 octane stage 2, it's reading 861 plus nanometers peak and around 745. Doing the math, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. How accurate is it?
I mean, I don't know where you're reading that, if that's from a data log or from a dash or something, or from like some sort of OBD thing. There's a lot of different torque numbers internal to the ECU. They're all modeled.
Yeah, those are
so
modeled.
take those with a little bit of a grain of salt. We do, I don't know what number you're looking at.
So here's the deal. There's no torque measuring device inside a B9 S4. So like Nate said, these are modeled torque numbers. They don't necessarily need to relate to real world torque. They just need to mean something to the ECU, and within the models, it creates a certain amount of boost and load and whatever. So I wouldn't read too much into those. We certainly don't make any effort to ensure they're accurate.
What we do, depending on what we're doing, is to ensure that it's working correctly, but it's to translate that to a real world number.
That's what I said. Yeah. We don't put any effort into making those numbers match a real world torque measuring rating.
Because there's a lot of that is actually calculated before it even gets to the flywheel. So you're taking into account, rotating frictions and all that. So like I said, there's a million different torque considerations inside the motor that modeled and calculated off of.
Mm-hmm. I've been running the street density motor mounts for a couple weeks now. My B9 S5 Sportback. They're a great upgrade, and I'm very pleased. Slight increase in noise, but much snappier and feel overall perfect. Yeah, there's no free lunch. If the mount is stiffer, you're going to feel it, and we make it as stiff as possible within the envelope of it not being or feeling obtrusive. But it is a great upgrade. Glad you feel it is. We don't really talk about what dynos we use, so we need to get into all that.
Tools, right?
Is it essential to reprogram a newly installed battery in VCDS when replacing a dead battery?
It's not essential.
It's a good idea.
It's a recommended thing. It's generally going to basically tell it the capacity of the battery, state of charge. But I've never seen a case where you've had to do it. It's just a charge optimization thing.
Speaking of pure turbos, what's the main difference between the pure turbo unit and the TT710, and which one would you guys recommend? The pure turbo is rated for more power, and people are finding that the pure 750 makes more power than the 710. They're both great options. The 710 is very fast, reliable setup. You can keep stock injectors. It doesn't max out the fuel system. Like the 810 or likely the 750 will require injector upgrades and things like that. I think the 750 comes out cheaper because it's a US based company and you can send them your core easily. So you really can't go wrong either way. Should we get into some of these DAZA questions?
Yes, this is meant to be a full conversation. It's kind of alongside of a new release of a competitive product where these questions have come up to us.
Great. So we've had recently an influx of questions around the DAZA application related to kind of dogbone inserts, pendulum arms, and things like that. So there's a question: is there a point where I should step up from your dogbone plus inserts to include street sport, track sport engine mounts? Yeah, I mean, generally we recommend that for any hybrid. Once you're into hybrid power levels, definitely stage 2 E85. I would strongly recommend street sport mounts. You are going to feel some NVH, but the stock mounts are just so overwhelmed at that power level. And something really bad can happen. If you break the stock mount, it can take out your
Just like microphone.
that. Yeah. It can take out the stock transmission mounting point as well. And once that happens, it can damage the case of your DSG. So you could be into a big repair at that point. So our street sport mounts are very popular for the DAZA. Honestly, you could run them on a stock car if you want them. They really lock down the engine and drivetrain, but you will experience some more NVH. There's going to be a trade-off. Track sport mounts will rattle your teeth out. They're still not solid, but they use very hard rubber mounts inside them. But the street sport stuff I found to not be too bad. There is kind of a resonance, I don't know, around 3,000 RPM or something. So once you kind of come up on that, you'll feel more NVH coming up to it, and then it'll kind of max out and then go away. So as long as if you're cruising, you stay kind of above or below that RPM point, you'll be fine. But I drove our TTRS all the way to Las Vegas with them in it and back, and it was fine.
Yeah.
At what power level are inserts not a sufficient upgrade? It's hard to say. It's not necessarily related to power level. A lot of it's related to how you're using it. So really hard launches really stress the drivetrain mounts. I mean, when you do a hard launch, basically your engine and transmission want to rip out of the car. So your mounts are now what's holding in it. The more things move, the more force and pressure there is. So it's kind of like doing a punch from this far versus this far. The force can increase. So if your engine and transmission can move 1 inch each way, as that kind of moves 1 inch, there can be a lot of momentum and energy that builds up, and then your mounts have to stop that.
Yeah, it's a much bigger shock. When it gets to the end of that travel,
and that's when you see things start breaking. Of course, the more torque and power you're producing, the higher those forces get. But if you just drive around really gingerly and you kind of roll on and off the throttle really carefully, you're not going to necessarily see the same kind of issues. So it's definitely, once you start getting into kind of stage 1, stage 2 E85 tuning power levels, and then with launching, at that point you really want to, I'd say, throw our whole mount catalog at the car. Yeah, it's a really good idea. For 700 horsepower hybrid turbo stock engine, is your dogbone mount a sufficient enough upgrade with stock engine mounts? I would say no. Again, you can break the factory transmission mount, and that's a relatively common failure. And when that breaks, it typically does more damage. People are reporting that the poly puck dogbone upgrades have less NVH in your billet insert and arm combo. Why would that be?
I have no idea. I haven't yet seen a poly puck, especially the whole puck, that has been less NVH than the rubber isolation.
Poly is not a very good material for engine mounts. The reason it gets used is because it's easy to manufacture by the aftermarket. So you won't see a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, a Porsche, a Koenigsegg. In F1, they don't use poly anywhere. Everything's rubber mounts. Rubber is the best mounting material for engine and drivetrain use. And the reason is rubber can compress and it can also operate under tension. The same reason you don't make rubber bands out of polyurethane. Polyurethane is very prone to failure. It's not durable in the automotive environment. It does not deal well with heat or oils and chemicals. In fact, you can make poly mounts yourself in your kitchen. You can put it on the stovetop, and you can melt the poly. So that the temperatures that a lot of engine compartments experience is about the same as what melts poly. So this is why there was a company, ECE, that's now gone under. Everybody jumped on, or not everyone, a bunch of people jumped on their poly mounts, and those mounts began failing after about 1 to 2 years. I've been, in this industry for almost 30 years, and I've seen every poly mount that ever came on the market fail. The reason companies make things out of poly is because it's cheap and easy. You can melt it, again, in your kitchen. You could make a little, go to Tab Plastics, you can make a little silicone mold, and you can start making your own poly mounts yourself. Kind of like you make fishing boards. It's not the right material. So our rubber mount products are vulcanized in a factory, a manufacturing factory with many millions of dollars, of tens of millions of dollars of furnaces and injection molding equipment. It's very expensive. But once that rubber is vulcanized to metal substrate, it can then compress and operate under tension. It's a great material. Rubber is also better at dampening vibrations. Poly is not the best at dampening vibrations.
Yeah, if you get to a poly that does adequately absorb those vibrations, it will generally pack out and just basically take a shape and give you gaps and a bunch of play in that mount.
And someone's asking, will inserts bend at stage 2 power levels with stock engine mounts? Some bending in inserts is okay, and yes, any insert you will see, any dogbone insert will bend a little bit. The point of an insert is not that it stays straight like it came out of the package. The inserts fill a void. So they go inside the voids in the mount, and they simply fill that space. If the mount bends a little bit, it's totally fine. If you ever experience bending with one of our inserts that you feel is hurting the product's use in some way, please contact us. We'll probably be happy to replace it. And the new one will get a slight bend in it just as well. The APR went out there and made to copy ours and make it out of stainless steel. Guess what? Those bend too. There's actually no problem with bending. There was like a couple cases where somebody really ramped on them, and the base of our insert was thinner. And so we had like 2 break. I mean, we're talking us like tens of thousands sold. Yes, yeah. Yes. That was before we had the upper. So if you use our lower and upper like you're supposed to, there will be very minimal bending, and it's totally fine. It's okay. It's supposed to do that a little bit. Again, the way the insert works is by filling the void. So unless it bends so much and breaks that it falls out of the void, it's still doing its thing. It's working. Any other? Yes. And then our billet inserts, even after slight bending, are infinitely more reliable than poly. You will never see our aluminum inserts wear out or fail. But these poly mounts, they will actually crumble and fall out. So ECE had this problem. Whatever new company that came along is doing poly mounts, they're going to have the same problem. It's not a reliable long-term solution. So, all we can do is sit back and watch people keep making the same mistakes over and over again. But we've had the best solution for a long time, and we will continue to offer it. And we sell a lot of our dogbone inserts, of our dogbone arms, of our press-in rubber pucks. We sell. These are some of our top-selling products. There are a lot of these in the field. We have minimal warranty issues with them. I mean, way below any kind of threshold that would ever be considered. They're extremely reliable products. All right.
So it says, I believe there's a diagram of the insert pair not bending. I think you're confusing the cutaway video we did that shows how that upper mount or that upper insert affects the basically the twisting action on that pendulum mount as it comes under lane. That doesn't have anything to do with the bottom insert tabs taking a shape a little bit.
Kind of out of time. Should we keep going? There's a lot of questions.
These last 2 are here.
Which ones? Dumb question, but for 0 through 4 stage 1 tune for the MK8 GTI, I can't see. Okay.
Could you run the low limited torque file on DSG transmissions? Yeah, of course you can.
Definitely.
That'll work totally fine.
Yeah. If you want to, you can run high or low torque. And would you still recommend a dogbone insert for DSG vehicles? I'm hearing about more NVH from those transmissions. Yes, absolutely. Most of the inserts we sell go into DSG transmissions. DSGs inherently have more vibrations than automatic transmissions. And so you will experience some NVH in reverse. We've actually had people complain about having too much NVH when they go into reverse and they're backing up, they feel too much NVH. I think that's pretty manageable for most people.
Yeah.
And then if you are sitting at a stop, and as you begin to accelerate, as the DSG clutches engage, there can be a little bit of NVH there.
Yeah, that really depends on your exact DSG and how that clutch adaptations are.
For me, these are completely minimal, and they're far outweighed by the benefits while you're driving of the driving experience of installing these inserts and using them. If you ever purchase anything from us and the NVH is unacceptable, let us know and you can return it or whatever. But again, we sell thousands and thousands of these to happy customers. And I think the people that complain about NVH are very, very rare, few and far in between. All right.
We are out of time.
All right. Thanks for all the questions, guys. I think the next time we talk to you, it will be next year.
It will be. Yep.
So maybe we'll do, I don't know, we'll have to figure out when we're doing it next week.
Yep.
I think we're closed again on Monday, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, guys.